Bank is.
It is now 7 o'clock right here on the family station Love 101. Time now for the morning watch.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, recent gang trial and SOE rulings, issues and implications. In the second watch, reactions to the recent violent attacks on Christians and churches in Nigeria. Our social media question we ask, what are your concerns, if any, about the gang trial and SOE rulings? Please share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
All right, I quote. All right, living in the past causes you to bump into people not going your way. Edna Ferber.
Hi, good morning, Roshane.
Good morning, Dr. Toussaint.
Yeah, let me also state my appreciation for the devotion this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen an eagle live and direct, by the way?
No, but I've seen the other one, the one that we know, the one that ends with crow.
Oh,
I've seen those live and direct. I've seen those up close and personal.
The Jamaican eagle.
Yeah, the dropped crow.
No, don't say it. The first watch will be back after this break.
We try to send our children to school with a healthy lunch, right? If we knew what was in some of those foods that are high in sugar, saturated fats, and sodium, would we still give it to them? An unhealthy diet as a child can lead to obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer as they get older. Octagonal warning labels on the front of food packages are 9 times more effective at identifying unhealthy foods. Give us octagonal warning labels on packaged foods. Protect our children's health. A message from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and partners.
Attention all grade 11 high school students and parents. The Ministry of Education has paid for you to sit the City and Guilds Math and English exam on Thursday, June 30. Check with your school to see if you're registered for these exams. Don't miss the chance of a lifetime to be qualified with a certificate recognized by employers and universities worldwide. The exam consists of one paper, no SBA, no stress. A perfect alternative to the other exam. Call City and Guilds at 924-7808 or 924-7804. City and Guilds, the passport to your future.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&B Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jnbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&B Bank will help you find a way.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and spiritual guidance are what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything. Tune in, listen, call in, text or voice message. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, it's no secret that the so-called One Don Gang trial, as well as the Roshane Clark state of emergency cases, have caught the attention of the nation. From both cases, there have been court rulings so far which have served as an eye-opener for some persons, while causing the eyebrows of others to be raised. In this, the first watch, we are asking, what are some of the ensuing issues and implications of these rulings so far? And to answer, or help us to answer, these and other related questions, we have online Dr. Nadine Spence, social commentator and lecturer, and Mr. Lloyd B. Smith, social commentator and managing editor of the Western Mirror. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Good to have you both. Though belatedly, Dr. Spence, I think it's the first time we're having you on since you have gained your doctorate. You are now a doctor. Congrats again.
Thank you.
All right. What are your opening thoughts on these recent court rulings? Let's begin with you, Dr. Spence.
On either or on both?
Well, you up to you. We're looking at both, but up to you. Whichever one you want to start with.
I think. So we have to make our distinctions. I like to comment on politics and the importance of political institutions and how they serve the majority, or how they serve the larger objective, right? How they serve the democratic objective. So, in one respect, I would say on the face of it, the conversation about the court leads into a conversation about our state, leads into a conversation about the quality of our democracy. And then we have to locate that about how the rule of law functions in a democracy. And that, for me now, having heard the verdict, it's understanding and perhaps wanting our people to have a conversation about the rule of law as separate from as an institution within the democratic arrangement, but also understanding the nature of the rule of law, which means that the way law is executed sometimes does not necessarily serve the interest of the state in all its machinations. So in this case, it would have been easier for all of the rulings to line up in such a way that for some people that reinforces a state of emergency, that reinforces prolonged detention and so on. But the law operates to different rules. And that is why we have something called a democracy, where these institutions keep a check and balance on each other. And I think that's what we saw happening here, that our democracy is alive and is doing well, and that the institutions that serve the interest of the democracy don't necessarily line up and agree. And that where one seeks to abrogate or trample on the rights of citizens, as should happen and as the democracy dictates, one will hold the other accountable. So I think that in this case, we saw some democratic institutions working together to protect the rights of citizens. And some of us might not necessarily have liked the outcome, but the truth is our democracy was enhanced by the ruling.
Okay. Mr. Smith, your take? opening thoughts?
Well, with respect to the gang trial, I think there are a number of lessons that have to be learned. And one of the backdrops before one gets to that is the fact that there is a mentality in the wider Jamaican society that needs to change. We have what I call a lynch mentality, and we see that once a person is arrested or caught in a particular criminal situation, then that person should be summarily dealt with without the process, without the law taking its course. And we have seen where the Chief Justice, Brian Sykes, has come under a lot of flack in the wider society because of some of his recent rulings with respect to that particular trial. I am one of those who remain on the side of the Chief Justice because I do believe that in the very final analysis, no matter who or what you are, then you must be subject to the Constitution and to the Charter of Rights with respect to how you are treated in the court. And so, you know, it's unfortunate that many Jamaicans come to conclusions without looking at all the facts and then making a reasonable conclusion. The fact is that the police system, the system of investigation and the gathering of evidence is very weak. It is sloppy, and this has been going on for a long time. And as a result, we have seen in many cases where you know, criminals have been able to slip through the system, having got a very good lawyer. So one of the lessons that must be learned from all of this, the gang trial, is that you know, again, our police personnel, they need to step up their act in terms of how they investigate or what evidence they produce, so that when the prosecution gets all that information, it is in a better position to represent the crown and to defend our democracy and so on. So those are some of the early takes for me from the gangland trial. Finally, I would say that I don't know if it was in the best interest of the country and in fact the justice system that so many persons should have been tried at one time. I think it's a bit wobbly. I think it lends itself to certain inefficiencies and perhaps
wasn't that the idea? Was that idea behind the law with gang trials, that you try to get everybody as you can at one time?
Yes, but that needs to be revisited because it's very costly, you know. I mean, how many lawyers there are on the case at one given time? And they prolong the nature of it. I don't know if maybe it could not have been compartmentalized. And I don't know. I'm not an expert on due process, but it seems to me that, you know, trying so many persons at one time begs the question.
Yeah. What's your take on that, Dr. Spence? The trying of so many people at one time? Because I'm hearing this. A lot of people are saying that no, that in retrospect they're wondering if it made sense.
I think that's the idea of this particular legislation, to try a group of people for being involved in a gang. So even though they were charged separately on some other counts, on the particular matter of them being in a gang, that was the intention, to develop a piece of legislation in Jamaica that would deal with the matter of gang involvement and the propensity for some of our young people to be engaged in gang activity, and to legislate such that that kind of gang activity becomes illegal. So I think on a more fundamental level is understanding that the state is saying there's a certain kind of group activity called a gang that we find puts the state at risk, and we are going to legislate to regulate that activity. Because before, remember, you wouldn't have been brought up on gang-related charges because that was just not a part of the jurisprudence. Yeah? So now these, since with the trial of the gangs that we've seen, all of them have been let off. The judge has ruled, the same judge in each case has ruled that he found the evidence gathering to be problematic. So what he tells us is perhaps because this is a legislation that the police are new to, perhaps because
well, could you? I'm sorry.
And generally, as Mr. Smith says, our police force is weak on evidence gathering and turning.
I'm sorry, Dr. Spence. Could you just hold that point, please?
Learn
Dr. Spence?
Maneuver this particular piece of legislation.
Dr. Spence, could you hold that point, please?
I think they need to learn how to work with the legislation so that they can bring successful cases to the court. So I think what as a nation we should be calling for is for the police force to be adequately prepared to bring charges against defendants.
Dr. Spence, could you hold that point, please? We'll be right back. We're upon a break.
Do you operate a business in the manufacturing or agro-processing industry? Sagicor Bank has a loan just for you. Sagicor Bank Manufacturing and Agro-Processing Loan. Borrow up to 50 million with up to 12 years to repay. Financing you can use to retool, expand, improve efficiencies, or gear up for export. Speak with a business banker today. Sagicor Bank Manufacturing and Agro-Processing Loan. Just another way Sagicor Bank is taking care of business. Conditions apply.
Exporters, importers, all stakeholders. Get the facts on Jamaica's Authorized Economic Operator, or AEO program, at the Jamaica Customs Agency's CCC online forum. Click, connect, and converse with Customs. Thursday, June 30, 2022, from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. under the theme Jamaica's AEO program, facilitating a safer and more effective supply chain, locally and globally. Log on for AEO requirements and benefits and clarify any misconceptions. So click, connect, and converse with Customs. Thursday, June 30 at 10:30 a.m. Register at jacustoms.gov.jm. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
Keep fully connected with Flow Fiber Fast Internet at home and on the road with LTE data and calls for a fast, reliable experience anywhere. Over 500 communities have been upgraded since 2020, making more of Jamaica Flow Fiber Fast. And with Yard and Road, get Flow Fiber Faster Yard and LTE Road for as low as $3,999 plus GCT. Visit discoverflow.co to get connected on Jamaica's largest network. Conditions apply.
The first sound they make is to simply let the world know they're here. And then it's our duty to help them show the world why they're here in the first place.
Give them every advantage with the Guardian Achiever, a plan that provides for their educational dreams and protects their health and life in the process. For more information, call 888-4LIFE to speak to an advisor or visit myguardiangroup.com.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this day, First Watch, we are discussing the recent gang trial and the SOE rulings, issues and implications. And in so doing, we have online Dr. Nadine Spence and Mr. Lloyd B. Smith. Before the break, Dr. Spence, you were telling us about your views on the gang trial itself in terms of all of these people tried at the same time.
Right. So, I kept on talking. I just realized that I wasn't hearing.
Yes.
I was saying that I think the way the legislation was designed was to do what it was trying to do, to try a group of people at the same time for being involved in a particular kind of gang executing a particular kind of activity. So I think that was the intention of the legislation, to try a group of people. I think what the judge said I think is insightful. He said There's nothing wrong with the legislation. Those who present cases for trial need to pay attention to what meets the standard of the law. What is it that causes someone to break the law? You need to bring evidence to that effect. So I was saying that I think what we need to do, and certainly what the police force needs to do, is to train those police who will be dealing with this particular piece of legislation in respect of bringing charges against people.
Isn't that easier said than done? But they're being trained. I mean, there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of factors involved. The inform of a dead culture, the secrecy, the conspiracy theories. I mean, there's so many things involved in this.
When you actually bring the case, it must be a case that meets the standard of proof that we know the court is going to use. If it doesn't meet that standard of proof, then it shouldn't be brought before the court. I think that's what the judge was saying. Ensure that if you're bringing cases, they meet the standard of proof. And in this case, that is what happened. Nothing is wrong with the law. We don't throw the baby with the bathwater. The cases that were brought before the court did not meet the standard of proof.
Are we not giving our police officers basket to carry water? Do they have the necessary resources that they need? And manpower, woman power?
Well, that's a question I think we could ask the courts. We should ask as well as the DPC's office. An assessment of how this was done. I think it might be instructive for the nation to engage in that kind of conversation. But this is the third time now we are finding the legislation not being impactful the way it was intended. So we can't, those of us who do the assessment and the thinking through for the nation, perhaps should start doing that kind of, deliberation. What was it that went wrong and what is the police doing? Is there a pattern? Is there something that we can improve? But certainly I think there's nothing wrong with the legislation. I think it's you that we are finding an issue with.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, what are the implications now of these rulings for crime fighting and court proceedings in Jamaica?
Well, one of the concerns I have, and Dr. Spence intimated the whole business, or was it you? I can't recall sufficiently. The matter of the inform of the dead culture. Remember that in essence, this current trial hinges tremendously on what we call snitchers. In other words, persons who were in fact part of the gang and who have now turned state witnesses. And the some of what has come out so far would suggest that the credibility of some of these state witnesses can be easily questioned. And sometimes when I listen to the outcome of some of the deliberations, it suggests that the police were simply relying on the narrative coming from the witness, rather than having any concrete evidence to corroborate what the witness is saying. And so again, we go back to the old question of due diligence and the extent to which the police have been sufficiently trained to handle this type of case. I think again, what we are seeing is that very often we put the cart before the horse. We are seeing it out with the SOE situation, where you institute the SOE and then you look at the regulations. When it is the regulation should be looked at and in fact be in sync with when the SOE is promulgated. We are seeing a similar situation here. We are rushing to trial without getting sufficient background evidence outside of what John Tom says. Because in the analysis, we don't know the total personality of this person. What if this person deliberately wants to frame someone? We saw, for example, where the witness identified a particular man, and the man said he doesn't know him, he has never met him, and the man gave him his name. The man, he was described as having bow legs, and I don't know if you
Yes, I heard it. Yes, I heard it. Yes.
The
Say he has no bow legs.
and that's not up and ask the Chief Justice to allow him to walk to show that he doesn't have bow legs, So
Yes.
to me, those are some of the implications. It is how, again, the thing should play out in terms of professional, conduct in terms of the police. I think there's a lot of sloppiness there. And it is not only with this particular trial. It goes right across the board in terms, too often we hear judges slapping the wrist of police officers for the very sloppy work and unprofessional work they do, which leads to trials being dismissed and justice not being properly served. And that is the essence of what I think that needs to be looked at this point in time to ensure that justice is in fact properly served, both for the defendant as well as for the state.
Speaking about state, Mr. Smith, is Jamaica becoming a failed state?
It's a questionable proposition. I think we're seeing elements. It's like a gathering storm, I would say. We have not reached there, but if we are not very careful, we just might. I wouldn't necessarily say a failed state, because as the good doctor has pointed out, our democracy is very strong. Our democratic way of life still remains very strong. But it could reach a stage where we're looking at a failing state. But I don't think, in essence, we may reach this of being a failed state.
Let me ask Dr. Spence. Let me ask Dr. Spence on that. Dr. Spence, are we becoming a failed
Not at
state?
all. Not at all. Jamaica is one of the most stable democracies.
We're far from that. We're far from that.
From a failed state. If you look at those countries where the state is under stress, they look nothing like our state. We are only 60 years this year into independence. Some of the countries we compare ourselves to are doing this for 300 and odd years. Our institutions are still being solidified and they are being tested in ways that, remember, our country is going to live long past us, 100 years when we celebrate 100 years. What do you think this nation is going to look like? We're a solid democracy, man. We shouldn't worry about that. What we need to do is ensure that we are shoring up our democratic institutions to deal with the stresses that a modern society brings, to deal with those citizens that will test the quality of the democracy and test the sanctity of the democracy. And we're doing that. We're improving. Who we are now is not who we were 20 years ago. We're a lot more sophisticated. Citizens are a lot more knowledgeable about the laws and the Constitution. And we have these conversations in spaces like this. So no, as citizens, we are not allowing our states to fail. That is our responsibility as citizens. It's not the government. It's all of us ensuring that in the ways that we contribute to the quality of the democracy, we continue to play our part. Mr. Smith running his newspaper in Montego Bay, you doing this radio station, and us keeping the conversation alive about what we like and what we don't like. That is a testament to the fact that this democracy is alive. So if I don't participate in that conversation, that we are a failed state. We are far from that.
So the way forward now, Dr. Spence and then Mr. Smith, 1 minute each.
I think the police force and the Director of Public Prosecutions need to work closely together when cases are being brought before the court to ensure that the process of the evidentiary process is being observed the way it is intended so that they can bring valid cases before the court. And I think perhaps the police force need to do more work with training their officers who work with gang to work within the context of the anti-gang legislation to ensure that it does what it was intended to do.
Mr. Smith?
I think, quite frankly, that maybe we should even be looking at some international help in terms of training our police officers. Because if you notice, yes, because there are
training is said. We have had that, Mr. Smith. We have had training.
Yes, but
have gone abroad.
To what extent? Because the gang legislation, which is new, normally a case, if you look at some of the cases in the States and elsewhere, they can take quite a long time. But when they finally reach the end of the road, then you see meaningful results. I'm saying that we have to be careful that we are not rushing this new legislation and carrying out in its entirety, and that maybe there should be a pause and to revisit the structures, revisit how things are being done, and I don't know the extent to which we have received training. When I say international, I mean people coming and interfering with how we do things. But I'm talking about the professional side, the scientific side.
Yeah, we have to leave it. We have to leave it there. I want to thank you both for joining us. Have a productive and safe day.
Okay, then you all the very best, and congrats, Dr. Smith, on your doctorate.
All right, listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
A JN Bank personal unsecured loan can help you tackle your goals with monthly payments as low as $19,999 per million. Conditions apply. The time by JN Bank is...
It is now 7:30 right here on the family station, Love 101.
There is nothing better than seeing your child happy, and the decision to create happy moments is yours. Lactogen 3 with L. Comfortis helps you nurture that happiness with probiotics that help you protect their tummy, vitamins and minerals for growth, and DHA for their brain development. Lactogen 3, growing up happy. Lactogen 3 from 1 year onward is not a breast milk substitute.
Pastors, elders, church and ministry leaders who wish to participate in a special book distribution of the 100 Steps Family Bible are being asked to contact the Bible Society of the West Indies today. The 100 Steps Family Bible is a book that contains the 100 steps from which readers can discover about Jesus Christ, how special the Bible is, and how the old age stories still have meaning today. For further information, you may contact the Bible Society of the West Indies at familybible100@gmail.com.
Non-communicable diseases, NCDs, are the leading cause of death and disability in Jamaica, a real public health problem. Be in the know. Reduce your and your family's risk. Information and action equal satisfaction. Go now to ncdip.moh.gov.jm to be in the know.
It's easy to follow, you see?
Me love use the BMI calculator.
The wellness check tool can tell you about your risk.
I understand my numbers better thanks to the NCDIP website.
Cause good health is like enough money in the bank. NCDIP website. Friendly, engaging, and empowering.
Get $100 cash from Alliance for your birthday bash when you collect a MoneyGram money transfer on your birthday this June. Conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing in the Gleaner. I'm seeing here that Kingston and St. Andrew to be hit with 3 days of water supply disruptions. That's Kingston and the St. Andrew. Take note. Also, wrong twin. Cops theorize mistaken identity as daughter killed on eve of Father's Day. Oh boy. Also, SOE rules vacuum. And I'm seeing here that the police and public in dark as government to retable regulations after fiasco. In the Observer, which gang? Not us. Accused in Klansman trial deny involvement in criminal organization. And also St. Thomas Machete mom. St. Thomas Machete mom. Daughter salute benefactor. And then finally in the Observer, assault on gangs. ACP Chambers says police making progress, steady progress, in dismantling criminal network or networks across Western Jamaica. Well, those are some of the major stories and headlines in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What are your concerns, if any, about the recent gang trial and SOE rulings? Leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. Soon come back.
He knows my name.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876 220-6474, weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of global crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today. 876-220-6474. It's the telephone counseling ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church.
This is a reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
He knows my name.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's join Roshane for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answer today's question. What are your concerns, if any, about the recent gang trial and SOE rulings? Roshane.
All right, let me start with this one. I believe there's a voice note here. Let me play.
Understanding Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Listen to me, man. I am saying this. A waste of time have them gang man there in a prison at the taxpayer money. Because so much of them got caught and none of them charge them and every one of them are get away. So you know, just let go the rest. We have put them and them taxpayer money for. Because if they're in a prison, they must send man come kill people. So it don't make no sense. Because people still are dead when they're in a prison, and I say they're in a prison and nobody not dead. Them still are send out man to kill who they want.
All right, I believe that's all for that one. Dwayne says it sets a tone that is nervy. Our country at the mercy of savage, lawless men. But our detective and evidence gathering needs to be world class for conviction to stick. That's all we have at this moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Roshane. And we want to thank those who sent in their comments a while ago. All right, as we segue into the second watch, listeners, according to a recent report by the Christian Association of Nigeria, attacks on churches and Christians in that country have been increasing sharply. In fact, dozens have been killed and several abducted for months, especially since the beginning of this year. To discuss the concerns arising from these recent developments, we have joining us the Reverend Canon Garth Minot, Anglican Bishop of Kingston, and Pastor Kennedy Alaneme, Senior Pastor of the Chosen Ministries in Kingston, and I believe he's a Nigerian by birth. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Good to have you both with us.
Morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
Bishop Minot, let
Yes.
me say congrats upon your recent appointment.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, and Pastor Kennedy, I hope I pronounce your surname correctly. You see, I have an unusual surname as well, so some people have difficulty pronouncing it. Could you pronounce it for us just to make sure? I got it right?
Got it right.
Okay,
morning.
great. Good to have you both. Let me begin with you, Pastor Kennedy. Give us a brief overview of Nigeria, especially in terms of the ministry and growth of the church there.
God bless you. God bless you. Nigeria, as a nation, has a population of almost 200 million and above people, and is one of the most populous black nation on earth. With predominantly Muslims and Christians dominated, and other religions. Nigeria has its neighbors from West Africa, has its neighbors Cameroon, Republic of Benin, Togo, Sierra Leone, and many other West African nations in Africa.
And the church?
As a result of the amalgamation in 1914 by the British, Nigeria was predominantly traditional beliefs. The British came in, amalgamated in Nigeria, bringing the North and the South. You have the North and the South coming together in 1914.
Well, Pastor, what about the church, though, Pastor? Zeroing on the church, how well is the church, our church is doing in Nigeria now, in light of all that you have said? The churches in Nigeria, how well are they doing?
The church in Nigeria is really advancing greatly, doing very, very well. Very, very well. The Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, the Methodist Church, the Baptist Church, the Protestants, many of them believe the church is really marching forward in Nigeria.
Is it regarded as a Christian nation, Nigeria?
Definitely, Christians. There's a lot of Christian denominations in Nigeria, but predominantly in the northern part of the country, you have the Muslims. But even in that place, you have many Christian-dominated states.
Okay. All right. Let me bring in Bishop Minor. Bishop, in light of the recent violent attacks on the churches and the Christians, what are your initial thoughts?
Thank you so much, and I'm very grateful to Pastor Elena for that overview, because it puts in perspective, at least the historical perspective, my comments. And let me first of all say, how sorry I am for that tragedy in Clarendon with the slaughter of the children and the mother.
Yes.
And what we see happening globally, we saw it in Texas recently with the massacre of children in school. What we see happening globally is a general sense of putting material possessions over and above human life. So there's a sense in which the worth of human life, the dignity of human life is second to the pursuit of material things. And this brings me also to recall a popular African saying, and Desmond Tutu was well known for repeating, which is that when the missionaries went to the continent of Africa, they took with them the Bible.
Oh, yes.
And they said to the Africans, let us pray. When they closed their eyes to pray, when they opened their eyes, they had the Bible and the missionaries had the land.
Yes.
And what is really going on with respect to the violence, generally on the African continent and in the north of Nigeria in particular, is really conflicts over land. We tend to, in the West, narrow it down to religious wars. And there's no denying that religion has something to do with it. But it's really the fight over land. And what Pastor Elena said is very important. This intervention by the British in the early 20th century to amalgamate these tribes was artificial, and we're still paying the consequences for that. So what we see as really conflicts between Muslims and Christians, and the seeming dominance of the Christians by the Muslims, and the massacre that is following, including recent massacre in churches, is really fight over land.
Oh, it's not a religious thing. It's not.
Primarily. I'm not ruling out the religious dimension, but it is primarily fight over possessions, fight over land and territory.
Interesting. Hold that point, because we want to hear Pastor Kennedy's response to that. We're up on a break. We'll be right back.
Put your plans in motion. There's a JN Bank loan just for you. That's true. Put your plans in motion. JN Bank will help you see them through.
A JN Bank unsecured loan can help you fix up your home, handle that emergency, consolidate debt, and more. Borrow up to $5 million with low monthly payments.
Put your plans in motion.
Monthly payments as low as $19,999 per million. Conditions apply. JN Bank will help you find a way.
It's summer and Phosphorus Super Sale is on, so come on over and shop. 10 days of savings, June 20 to 30. Enjoy massive discounts on electrical lighting, solar and LEDs. Yes, that's right. Wires, plugs, switches, LED bulbs, chandeliers, and so much more. It's Phosphorus Super Sale in Kingston, Mandeville, and Montego Bay, June 20 to 30. Enjoy massive discounts only at Phosphorus. Open Sundays, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.
The All-American Institute of Medical Sciences, Ames, is your preferred tertiary institute with campuses in Black River, Kingston, and Mandeville. Ames expands your mind to an associate degree in health sciences with electives in pharmacy technician, medical assistant, and phlebotomy, dialysis technician, surgical technician in 18 months at a cost you can afford. We also offer a 4-year medical degree program and a Bachelor of Science in optometry. You'll find the Ames experience to be an enriching one. Enroll at Ames today. Call 876-634-4068 or visit the website aaims.edu.jm. Medical education par excellence.
Exporters, importers, all stakeholders. Get the facts on Jamaica's Authorized Economic Operator, or AEO program, at the Jamaica Customs Agency's CCC online forum. Click, connect, and converse with Customs. Thursday, June 30, 2022, from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. under the theme Jamaica's AEO program, facilitating a safer and more effective supply chain, locally and globally. Log on for AEO requirements and benefits and clarify any misconceptions. So click, connect, and converse with Customs. Thursday, June 30 at 10:30 a.m. Register at jacustoms.gov.jm. Jamaica Customs, keeping our customers in focus.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this day second watch, we are having what I believe an interesting, insightful discussion on the violent attacks on Christians and churches in Nigeria. And in so doing, we have online the Reverend Kennedy Alaneme, Nigerian now pastor in Jamaica, and the Reverend Canon Garth Minot, Anglican Bishop of Kingston. Pastor Kennedy, before the break, if I was hearing correctly, Bishop Minot is making the case that the attacks have been primarily based on conflicts over land. What's your take on that?
God bless you. Rightly, that is one of the issues, because of the issue of desertification in the north. And because of that, because many of them are herders, rearing of cattle, because of the desertification, you see them moving down south. And moving down south, they have to encounter the communities in the south. and these are mainly the Fulani. And in trying to graze on their farmland, there is always a war. But that is one of the reasons. But most importantly is there are religious undertones in these violent attacks, because it didn't start today. It's a long time toward the history of Nigeria. There have been a lot of religious riots. But recently, it has been on the increase because of the incidents of the Boko Haram, the Muslim fundamentalists, who are trying to perpetuate the Sharia law, trying to carve out an Islamic state out of Nigeria. And this has led to most of the states in the north that are pro-Christian, they are mainly Christian dominated, having serious attacks, burning of churches, people are being killed. You see places, there are so many riots over the years, in southern Kaduna, part of the northern Nigeria. Christians are being slaughtered, the churches are being burned. The attacks have been on, and these Boko Haram people come in Borno State, in Zamfara. Many of the Christian dominated areas in the north have been under attack. So it has a religious undertone. Another issue is the issue of Sharia. Sharia is the Muslim law, and these things, as long as you are a Christian, the Muslims will always want to have this law obeyed to the letter. So this have brought conflict. Now, because of the high level of violence in the recent times, this is even spilling down to the south. You can see the recent killing of Catholic church posts on the state. A student was killed. A student of Ahmadu Bello University was killed because they accused her of blasphemy, stoned inside the school and burned.
So let me just get it clear. Pastor Kennedy. You are saying it's primarily a religious reason and cause behind it, and not so much the land?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if Bishop wants to respond to that, Minor?
No, I said in my comments that I will not rule out the religious dimension.
Yeah, the key word is primarily.
Right. You see, so I suppose Pastor Alena and I will differ with respect to the primary reason. But yet at the same time, he did agree that land and the whole movement of the pastoral, the farmers seeking land to graze their animals is a fundamental part of the reason. But for example, though not related to this specific case we're discussing, but if you look at the ownership of oil rigs in Nigeria, in 1974, the Nigerians and the Nigerian government owned all the oil rigs in Nigeria. Now, the larger percentage of oil rigs are owned by expatriates. So what we see is a decline of the ownership of oil, land, etc. In Nigeria. And so you have these ongoing conflicts. So when Pastor pointed out that the Muslims, for example, in the north, are agitating to own and control more lands, part of that is religious. I'm not denying that, but part of that is an attempt to reassert, recapture, land and material things that Nigerians formerly owned, but which have been sold or given to expatriates.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with violence, and violence is wrong all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think the argument needs to be balanced with respect to the way that the African territory generally since the 19th century have been parceled out to expatriates, and we saw a lot of this in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and other places. So I think that has to be brought into the mix as well. It is not a primarily or predominantly religious war. I'm not ruling that out, but there is the matter of ownership of land, ownership of the oil. Those things are also to be put in the mix as well.
Interesting. Pastor Kennedy, how have these attacks, though, affected that same mission and ministry of the church in Nigeria, as far as you understand it? How has it affected the church?
Yeah, you see, it has affected the church. It has affected the church in many ways because now many people, there's high level of tension among the Christians all over Nigeria, coupled with a high level of insecurity. So the attendance, not that the attendance have reduced, but still it has an impact on the church. And again, positively, you see, the Bible made us to understand that the Christians must always face persecutions. So in the face of those persecutions, you will you find the church growing stronger and stronger and more united. Because all the things, that is going on have made Christians to realize that now we have to form a common unity. And then involved in warfare and make sure that the will of God, particularly because the greatest thing is the Great Commission, making sure that the unsaved is what saved. So in as much as it is affecting the church negatively, it has equally impacted on the church.
The resolve of the church has been strengthened, eh?
Yes.
Great. Bishop Minot, we are winding down now. Any lessons for the church in Jamaica?
Yes. In fact, the last point made by Pastor Kennedy, I think, is important. The church thrives when it's under pressure. That is how the early church flourished under persecution.
Yes.
And, this is not to say that we should deliberately put ourselves in harm's way, but when things are good and going well, we tend to relax, and we're not as vigilant when it comes to proclaiming the gospel.
Become complacent.
We become very complacent. When we're under pressure, as in the case in Nigeria, we flourish and thrive, and that's why the church on the African continent is thriving, as against rapid decline in Europe and North America because of the complacency. The global south, the church is growing because of the abject poverty and the challenges and so on. Now with the war in Ukraine and the global challenges to food distribution and so on, the church is thriving. So I think it's a good thing. It's a terrible way to put it, but when the church is under pressure, the ministry thrives and the mission flourishes. So I think it's good to draw from that. And the second lesson I would suggest is the importance of teaching. We must teach the faith in the midst of the challenges that we face, because now is the time for people to redouble their efforts with respect to discipleship. Now is the time to sharpen the skills of our membership with respect to evangelism and proclaiming the good news. So it's an opportunity. It's a crisis, but it is also an opportunity for the church to flourish. Thank you.
Oh, what a great note on which to end from both of you. Thank you so very much for an informative, insightful discussion. Is it Tertullian who said the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right. God bless you both.
Thank you so much. All the best. All the best.
Thank
Bye
you.
now. Bye, Pastor Kennedy. All the best.
Bye, Bishop.
All right. Yes, man. Thank you both. All right. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information how to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-959627. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer and our guests. Please join Mr. Stokely Marshall next week as he continues to look at the issues of the day. I am Dylan Toussaint, reminding you to be purposeful, to be really faithful, thankful for the mercies that God has given us, and be watchful with what is happening within our country and the rest of the world. As I hand you back to Love in the Morning, Roshane Douglas.
Thank you, Dr. Toussaint. Have a great night, day now.
Bless you.
Bless you.
NHF beneficiaries enroll